Hello and welcome to Cracking the Cryptic, and today we're going to have a look at my solve of today's times puzzle. Now you'll see that we're starting the video at 2 minutes 37 seconds and or 2:33 I think it was. And that's because I had a look at it for 15 or 20 seconds and then got interrupted, so then I had to deal with something and come back to the video a couple of minutes later. So in my mind, at least, I'm going to deduct about 2 minutes 15 seconds off the eventual time. Anyway, that said, here's where I got started at 10 across, and let's just pause the video and look at that clue. Quite a long clue, and as I say sometimes, that's a bit worrying because it means there's going to be different elements of wordplay involved. Now, on the plus side, it's a phrase, and that's why, having found that the first few clues I looked at weren't giving me anything straight away and looked quite difficult, it's good to start with a phrase because you really get a chance at figuring out what it might be even before you read the clue. Now, a 2, 3, 4 combination is very likely to have the as the second word, so it'll be preposition the noun most of the time, and that does help. Because when you look at the wordplay here, which seems to begin weeks and weeks, eliminating extremists and European. Now there's twice there are things that a crossworder is going to spot as a guide to some wordplay. Eliminating extremists normally means, it sounds like it means chopping the ends off something. So the first and last letters being eliminated from something. And European is normally the letter E. Now, given that we're kind of expecting it to begin in the or on the, it didn't take me long to realise that weeks and weeks could be months, because if you chop the M and S off that, you've got ONTH, and then European is E, so that begins on the. So then I need a word meaning lefty to complete a phrase meaning in succession. And I think I thought on the spin, on the turn, that wouldn't really work, but I did think of it, on the trot. And of course, a trot, in the sense of a Trotskyite, is a lefty. Something Simon mentioned a couple of days ago, although that was in a puzzle the other way round, and I think the clue mentioned trot, and he needed jog in the answer because it was actually fooling him that it was a lefty or a red. So, still, getting the third letters of some of these down answers is less helpful than getting the first letters. I can see that 3 down is almost certainly going to be defined by most effeminate, but neither feeblest or weediest, which I thought of, are long enough, despite having an E in third place. So I couldn't really see where we were going with that one. And I moved on to 5 down, I think, where I had a look at 9 down, didn't really see where that was going either. 5 down, though, says, it's another phrase, 5, 4, 5, here we go. And the clue is speak cautiously, as one's vigilant dentist might. And the answer I enter is watch one's mouth, which seems to answer speak cautiously. And it's a kind of pun, one's vigilant dentist might presumably watch one's mouth all the time. So it kind of fits the clue, but what I was worried about was whether watch one's mouth is actually a phrase. Watch one's tongue, I know. I wasn't so sure about watch one's mouth. So I've put it in, but I'm ready to change it if necessary, when, you know, if it turns out to be a phrase that's doing something with one's teeth or something. And then 4 down, small daughter sent back uncooked seafood. Now in the Times, small is normally the letter S. I can see sent back uncooked. It looks like raw backwards. So I was trying to think of some seafood beginning SWAR. I couldn't do it, but then I eventually realised that the way that daughter fits into the clue, it could just begin DWAR. And of course there is a word, it doesn't mean seafood, it means small that begins DWAR. And the seafood in this case is the fish at the end of the answer. Not what you'd normally call seafood, but I suppose food that's in the sea, so fair enough. Now 6 down, brief jail sentence over by middle of March. The wordplay is fairly straightforward. The middle of March is the letter R, and then you need to turn a jail sentence over, so make it backwards in this down clue. And What I like about this is the definition brief, which most usages of, and indeed the clue's apparent usage, normally it's an adjective, but in this case it's a noun defining the answer, which is remit. One's brief is one's remit. And I thought that was very neatly put together. Couldn't do 7 down, that's a bit embarrassing. Again, a regular crossworder will see the word decreasing in a clue and will often deconstruct it to mean decreasing, taking the creases out of something. And indeed, 7 down is ironing, which is a fairly familiar pun for crossworders. I think it's one ring keeping, i.e. containing, on. And that works fairly straightforwardly. 15 across is pinotage, which is a wine, although I have to admit I'm more familiar with Pinot Noir, Pinot Grigio. I'm not a great connoisseur of wine, but I have heard the word pinotage. I just wouldn't have necessarily known that it was a wine in its own right. And here at 18 across, another throwback to 2 days ago. Let's just go back a second to have a look at that clue. Pastry confections. Yes, German markets stock tons. Well, yes, German, just as 2 days ago, is ja. So pastry confections begin with JA, and given that this is a 3-5 ending in S, that should probably be enough to give most people the answer. The rest of the word play is marts, stocking, containing, the letter T for tons. So in go the jam tarts. And now I'm getting going a bit. I'm on a roll, which is the answer to 25 across. Continually lucky, very straightforward definition, and elector's names found here are very straightforward. Barely a pun really, just another definition in a way. Couldn't pick out 16 across. Some Asians worry, 16 down, some Asians worry about limiting decline in islands. And I needed a bit more help with that. Well done if you can see that immediately. But then 21 down, ignored is the definition. Publicity, well, that's normally going to be an ad or possibly a promo or PR sometimes, but an ad is the most likely. About, so containing, video nasty, and that's a fairly straightforward indication that there's an anagram of video in ad, AD, and it means ignored, so that's avoided, which is reasonably straightforward again. One walking to postbox may be caught by tiredness on the way back. Well, that's just a hidden in the word tiredness. Little bit convoluted to define a sender as one walking to postbox. That's clearly been done to give a decent surface sense to the clue, because most senders wouldn't necessarily be suffering from tiredness. You'd kind of have to be doing some physical activity to be tired, so that's what they've made the clue say. Now 20 across, idealised picture from the setter's past. I thought that was probably imago, because the wordplay works like that. This setter's is I'm and past is ago. But of course age has lots of connotations of past, and image did seem like a slightly more accurate definition of idealised picture. When you see imago in a crossword, it's normally defined in the sense of one of the stages of a butterfly's development, I think the adult stage. So it was a bit odd to see it defined as idealised picture, and as you can see, I didn't quite dare enter the E or O at the end of that until I'd figured out 17 down. 17 down, in which the definition was accelerator, and although I could see that I mistyped it, but I could see the wordplay seemed to be giving collider. And I was struggling perhaps with the driving surface of the clue, and I couldn't quite see why an accelerator would always be a collider. Maybe they'd be more likely to be a collider in a car, until I figured out that it's like the CERN, well, I don't even know what the phrase I'm looking for there is, but if you create a collider for atoms to collide in, that's much more an accelerator, particle accelerator. At issue was a fairly straightforward clue based on a tissue. I think one's seen that before a few times. leg put in plaster, perhaps for a start, was fairly straightforwardly on set. I'm not sure why I had to come back to that twice. On is the leg side in cricket, and that's a very familiar crossword clue. 28 across, celebrity, heading off with your antique stone. This one, I think I got that mostly from the letters in the grid. Amethyst would fit, and working out that it's most of fame and thy and st for stone wasn't something I did immediately. And then we were left with this northwest corner, and feeblest and weediest still wouldn't work at 3 down. And in fact, the actual answer when I get there was very surprising. Most effeminate defines this word, and the way that the clue works, the wordplay. British artist, again a throwback to 2 days ago, is the artist Etty, but briefly, so you take off his last letter. And that ETT is housed, contained by a word for a minister, in this sense in the clue, a clergyman. And that makes the answer, in fact, for 3 down, prettiest, which I'm a bit shocked to see defined as most effeminate. Now, there may be an older meaning of pretty that is effeminate, but if I'm honest with you, I can't help thinking that plays somewhat sexist these days. To call someone pretty and equate that with being effeminate, I don't know, it seems strange. I wasn't thrilled about that. I didn't really know the word at 1 down, crosscut, and it took quite a long time to manage to reinterpret excavated, which I thought would mean with the insides taken out, so just the end letters. But in fact, it's an anagram indicator, so you have to anagram scouts after CR. And 1 across too, I'm just going to pause it so you can still see the clue. I was again fooled by the usage in this. Poor quality business, fellow having a bit of money invested. I did see the possibility of cheapo early on, which is heap in co. But I couldn't see what fellow was doing in the clue, because I thought the business was a co, and having a bit of money invested would mean putting a heap in it. And that could all mean poor quality, which is cheapo. But I think in the end, fellow in the sense of a prefix. If you're a fellow actor, you're a co-actor, or a fellow worker, you're a co-worker. That's the most equivalent version. So fellow was co, which I've not seen before. Fellow is very often F or man or chap, but here it's co, and that's got heap invested in it. And the definition is poor quality business. And I suppose that's not in the sense of firm, that's in the sense of things that are poor quality, and they are cheapo. It must be a noun, which rather surprised me. And then eventually I managed to finish off with crosscut. And I wasn't thrilled about my time. There have been quite a few things, especially in that corner, where the wordplay had surprised me considerably. What I'd thought the clue was doing wasn't quite what it was doing. You do sometimes have to be prepared to change your mind on how a clue is to be parsed. And so by the time I eventually put in crosscut, obviously my time's showing as 9.5 minutes. And even if you take off 2.5 minutes from that, from the bit at the beginning, it's still a 7-minute solve on a puzzle that had quite a few easy clues. And I was thinking, that really hasn't gone very well. So I don't know quite what happened here. There was some sort of glitch in the system. I had to press submit again, but my time stayed at 9:39. And I did want to look at the leaderboard and see if the people that I kind of consider I compete against had been doing this much quicker than 7 minutes. And I was quite relieved to see that at the time I had solved it, they hadn't been. So Jason is one of the quicker solvers, and he'd done it, I think, in, let's have a look. Where is it? Jason, 8 minutes and 6 seconds. So my actual time of about 7 minutes stands up quite well against that. Tom Stubbs did quite well. Verlaine's a genuine time, and they were just over 10 minutes. So I acknowledge that there were some quite difficult clues, and it was a slightly harder puzzle than the average, and I think the time bears that out to some extent. So I hope that was interesting for you. Another time's puzzle solved, and I hope you learned something from the video. Hope to see you again also on Cracking the Cryptic. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.